Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Talk About It. My name is Anvil Wiskus. I'll be your host today, and I am so grateful that you are here and you are joining me. If you are brand new to Talk About It, welcome. It is a post-grad centered podcast that posts every single Wednesday, and I am so grateful that you are here and you are joining me. Hey, you guys, how are we doing? How has the week been? Been a minute. Been a while since we had a singular topic. I feel like this month has been kind of chaotic in terms of the podcast just because we've had so many crazy things going on. We had our series that we finished. We had two guests come on that were amazing and wonderful. And then last week we had a Q&A episode. And you guys, I am really excited to just sit down and relax with you guys today. I needed a drink. It's one of those days, okay? It's one of those days I needed a drink. So here I am with my Fresca. I've always been surrounded by Fresca. My dad loves it, but I don't know. I don't know what kind I had when I was younger, but I never really enjoyed it. And then I had one last week and it was delicious, you guys. It was delicious. I was like, why haven't I craved this earlier? So I am drinking a grapefruit citrus Fresca. So if you are a Fresca fan, let me know. Comment down below because I am joining you. And I cheers to this episode, to have an amazing episode. I cheers to us having a amazing conversation about all things fun, all things amazing, and just our energy being fabulous today because I think that's what we need, okay? I need to manifest good energy right now because it's just one of those days, and it's been one of those days for a while now. But anyway, let's cheers to an amazing podcast episode. Okay, you guys, here we go. Another one. I need one more. Lovely. Exactly what I needed. Okay, we're feeling fun and funky and fresh, you guys. Okay. Hi. Hello. What an introduction. Okay, you guys. I realized last week that I missed a very important key to my episodes, you guys. My weekly question, okay? And I know the last week episode we had was still a little bit different, right? It was still like a new portion. So, like, I'm not mad I didn't include it, but I'm not forgetting this week, okay? If you know, you know. Our question of the episode of the week of this podcast, okay? How are we? How are you? What's up? What's going on? What's new? Where are we at? You guys, I'm fairly well. I'm fairly well. I'm not fantastic, but I'm fairly well. I'm going to leave it at that. This week has been a fine one. I think my brain is a little dead from so many different things. I think it's dead from overconsumption. I think it's dead from overcommitments. I think it's dead from work. I feel like my brain is just like on its last spark right now. And so I'm really trying to, especially over my weekends. These past 2 weekends have been very similar where I'm like trying really hard to not overcrowd my schedule and my life because I've been realizing my burnout. That's like the brink. Okay, we're hitting a point of stress and frustration, and I just feel like I tend to say yes and tend to commit to things so easily. And I love that about myself. I love that I'm a person that wants to be a part of things and like will be someone you can depend on and will make time for what's important. But I will say that there has to be a happy medium. And so today's episode is kind of inspired by that. Okay. Today's episode is about what you say yes to, what you say no to, what you allow into your life and what you don't allow into your life. I just feel as though right now I'm feeling this topic a little heavier in my heart and a little bit more just in my everyday life. And so, you guys, today we are going to talk about healthy boundaries and creating healthy boundaries and also figuring out your boundaries, okay? Because every time I get asked a question, whether that's just with my friends or as I'm figuring it out by myself of what are my boundaries, you guys, I forget the meaning of boundaries, okay? I forget what that word even means. I feel like we say it so often, but I'm like, what even is a boundary? And so I really want to dissect that today. And I want this episode to truly be like, this is the stuff that I'm going to be doing starting now. I've done a little bit of like research just in terms of like where I need to start, where I need to begin, how to create this and make this something that I want to commit to. So this episode is truthfully going to be a let's talk about like what I'm going to be doing and the importance of creating healthy boundaries and just figuring out what boundaries work for you. So with all that being said, you guys, let us dive into this episode and let us talk about creating healthy boundaries. You guys, I went to church this morning and it was an amazing service. It was such a beautiful service. I just look forward to church so much. I love it. I love it being a part of my weekend routine. But I came home and immediately was just like, immediately just like felt tired. Okay. Immediately just kind of felt like I had used up all of the energy that I had for today. And I got into some comfy clothes. And I wasn't sure if I was going to plan on recording an episode today, but I felt like this was the perfect time to talk about this episode and to talk about this topic because the reason I'm feeling so drained is just because I lack strong boundaries when it comes to saying yes and saying no and knowing what's best for me and knowing what's something that is overcrowding my life. And I think that boundaries are fantastic. Everyone needs boundaries. But a lot of the times when we configure boundaries for ourselves, we create boundaries based off of society and based off of what society says are red flags and things to avoid and things we should look out for. And even though that's helpful because I think a lot of that is universal, we personally have our own discrepancies and differences when it comes to boundaries. And I could talk to my friends about the boundaries that I have for certain things, but they might not fully understand it the same way I do, and that's okay. Same thing with their boundaries. They might have certain boundaries that I don't fully understand to the extent that they have them at. And I think that's beautiful to talk about, but I really have been feeling like I need to solidify the boundaries that I have in my life and what I say yes to, what I say no to, and also feeling confident in doing that and confident in saying yes and saying no. So, the first thing that I want to state when it comes to creating healthy boundaries is truthfully knowing your value and limits. If you are someone who seeks value in certain things, seeks your worth, seeks your confidence in certain things, it's going to be really easy for someone or something to weasel their way into overstepping that boundary. And I think that when you take the time to dissect in yourself your value and what your value is in and what defines your value as your own individual person, creating your boundaries is a little bit easier because once you know what you are, you know what you aren't. And because you know what you aren't, you're able to realize when people are treating you the way you don't deserve to be treated, or they're prioritizing things that you don't want in your life, or they're making decisions for you that you don't want them to make. It becomes apparent when you know your worth and you know what you want to notice those no's in your life. And I also think limits are really important. I was on a walk with my friends the other day, and one thing that we just like ended up bringing up, it was a conversation within our walk, was the difference between red flags and the difference between deal breakers. And this doesn't just have to be like in a romantic relationship. It can be in any kind of situation with someone else. But we were talking about red flags and we were talking about deal breakers. And when it came to red flags, everyone has a list of like red flags that you could probably use to vary in and vary out the types of people that you surround yourself with. But the biggest thing about red flags is there are big red flags and there are smaller red flags. They're kind of like orange red flags, right? And I think when it comes to red flags versus deal breakers is the person's willingness to understand the importance that that holds in your value and your relationship together, and their willingness to put in effort to adjust that, not necessarily change, but to make the necessary readjustments into what they're doing to make it easier on you. A lot of the times, there are a lot of conversations that kind of fall into that middle ground. And I think over time, that is the biggest testament to if someone is showing you a deal breaker or if they're showing you a red flag. And that's kind of what we had talked about, me and my friends, because it can be really easy that someone masks a deal breaker as just a red flag. And the reason you know it's masked is because over time it pushes your limit. It pushes the patience that you have for that one thing that might not be 100% what you're looking for, but you want to give that person an opportunity to grow and to learn and to become better and not turn into the person that you want them to be. But if it's something that is truly bothering you and that person agrees to it and they want to make that change for you, time will tell if that person is showing you a red flag or a deal breaker because of their willingness to push your limit. And I think knowing your limits on some of your boundaries is really important. If this is an absolute no, but you're a graceful person and you're willing to give someone an opportunity to make a mistake and then reconcile in that and learn from that and grow in that, that's one thing. But if someone continues to take your grace and abuse it and overpower it and make you think that they are getting better even when they're completely not, that's a deal breaker. And so I think when it comes to this specific bullet point that I have of knowing your value and your limits, it truly is a deep dive into your own willingness to accept someone else, but also respecting yourself enough to be like, you know what? I know what I'm worth and I know that I've put up with this for too long. Your words aren't matching your actions. And so because of that, I'm not sure if this is something that I'm willing to pursue. And so I think that's one of the first steps that we need to take. If we're going to get into something and we don't know our value and we don't know our limits, they'll easily be overstepped and walked over because that's the first thing that people will abuse. So now that we kind of know that we need to know our values and we need to know our limits, the next step in that is truthfully communicating that clearly with yourself and with someone else. A lot of the times people will cancel last minute. And I'm fine with that. I understand reasons for cancellations and I will always take a time or a night into myself. However, if it's so last minute that I have already gotten ready for something and then you decide to cancel it, that is such a waste of my time. And that's honestly disrespectful to my time. And that's a boundary because I think and view my time and your time as being very precious. And so when it comes to the point where that could be overlooked or someone could not respect that out of me, my job needs to be making sure that I communicate that that is important to me. And when someone does turn around and do that to my face, I don't attack them with anger or frustration, but I kindly maybe say, hey, that's totally fine, but I do want you to know that in the future, I would have really liked to have known this earlier. I think that I was really looking forward to this. I am ready for it, and I was literally about to head out the door. But I understand that things come up and I understand life is unexpected. I just, in the future, if you had the ability or have the ability to communicate this clearer with me, that would be greatly appreciated. I hope to see you soon. And if someone continues to do it, then I truthfully make a note to not reach out to that person. I think using your words and not only letting people know when something is a boundary, but also not attacking them if they end up stepping over that boundary. A lot of the times if people just don't know, they don't know. And so a lot of the times our boundaries can be pushed because people are used to their own habits and their own ways and they don't know that that is a hard thing for you to overlook. And so because of that, they have no idea, therefore they don't have a warning, therefore it leaves greater chance to them maybe overstepping that boundary of yours and pushing your buttons a little bit more. And I think that it's important for us to be mature. It's important for us to know how to communicate our boundaries. And that's kind of why this is flowing in this step that it is because we have to know how to communicate our boundaries to then allow for someone to respect them and to allow for healthy communication to take place, because that at the end of the day is the most important part of boundaries. If you don't have a way to communicate certain things in a healthy way, no one's going to respect your time, no one's going to respect your boundaries and your relationship if you don't tell them the importance that things have to you and the ways that you view certain things. If something is important to you, tell the person that you want it to be important to. It's as simple as that. Communication is so clear when you do it correctly. And if you communicate in the ways that you need to communicate it and then someone oversteps your boundary, then you have the full ability to understand how that person views you as a person. And if they respect you, if they want the relationship, if they care for you as a person, if they know that that is a boundary and that they still push your buttons and they still choose to act a certain way, I think that that's full clarity in truthfully how they view you. I think one thing that follows when we talk about our boundaries a lot is guilt. And guilt for the fact that we can't always please people. I struggle with this. I am a major people pleaser, okay? If someone needs something from me, I will clear time to make sure it happens. If my boss needs me, if someone needs information from me, I have a really bad habit of feeling like that it needs to happen right now and I need to respond to it right now. Versus what I've been trying to do is take a step back and realizing that I don't have to be the hero in every situation. If someone needs something from me, of course, be there, be available, but I don't have to rack my brain to please that person so much, especially if it's overstepping a boundary of mine. And that's such a hard thing to avoid because a lot of the times when we do get caught up in the possibility of pleasing someone else over pleasing yourself, it comes with giving too much when you don't receive anything. Therefore, stepping over a boundary and bringing upon maybe more stress, maybe more chaos, maybe more whatever it is into your life, rather than having the possibility to say no and maybe telling them that it's not going to work out or that's not something that you want and facing possible backlash or repercussions, which is such a hard thing to think about. I'm thinking about it right now like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want conflict. I want to be someone who's always there for someone, but the truth is, you guys, we can't always be there for other people. We have to know what's important for us in the moment. And sometimes if someone is asking you something, that doesn't mean that they're stepping over your boundary all the time. But what you need to make sure that you do to make sure that they don't always do that is knowing that boundary of yours and realizing when you need to say yes and when you need to say no and standing by that, knowing that that was the best decision for you and knowing that you're not always going to please other people. And so because you're not always going to please other people, it's really, 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 really important to not allow yourself to feel guilty afterwards for saying no, for not helping that person, for making a different decision. Because if that's not what you want right now, if that is something that you're unable to do, why would you stress yourself out to do it? And I have to ask myself this because I do that. I stress myself out in order to do something for someone else. And I don't know why I do it. I just want to make that person happy with me. I want to make that person lean on me and like me and enjoy my time and know that I'll always be there. But you know what it does is it creates such a false commitment to that person that I always have to do that then. And I don't want that to be the relationships in my life. I want to be someone that they can depend on, but they don't walk all over me. I don't want to be someone that can be walked all over. I want to be someone that's liked, but I need to respect my boundaries enough to know when to say yes and when to say no. And if I say no, not feeling guilty for saying no. And Lord, how we do that, I don't know. I think it's truthfully when you find confidence in your value and in your limits that when you say no, it feels more powering than deflating. And in all transparency, whenever I say no, as easy as it is to say no, I get so afraid of the repercussions that could come after that. The repercussions such as people end up not inviting me to hang out anymore. People don't think I'm fun anymore. I end up not being considered for an opportunity in the future that could be very beneficial. People depend on me less. And even though a lot of that to some people might be like, oh, whatever, like, that's fine. To me, that's so hard to be okay with because I want people to depend on me. I want to be that friend you can always call. I want to be that person that you ask to come in or help on a day that you need the help and you know that I will be there for you. I want to be the person that you want to have fun with and that you want to be in that room with. However, what I'm realizing is that I need to differentiate the need to be wanted versus the need to be wanted by the right people. And you guys, that's so funny because that's a realization I'm coming to in like these past few days of just the right people will be okay with you saying no. The right people will love you if you're there or if you're not there, and they'll continue to think about you. They won't hold that over your head and use that against you. They'll continue to invite you because they know that the one time that you're there, the 7 times that they ask, will still be fun. Like, the right people will allow you to say no and not make you feel guilty for it. And I think that that really is the difference in boundaries, because if you allow people, kind of going back to like our whole list that we've been creating, right? Our list of knowing your value, knowing your limits, communicating that properly, and not feeling guilty. When you know your limits and communicate things properly, you allow the wrong people to be removed from your life naturally because you have taken note that that's something that you don't want in your life, and make room for the people who will accept you for all that that is and respect your boundaries. And from there on, okay, from that point on, you guys, you will be accepted and wanted regardless of if you say yes or if you say no. Therefore, making it easier to hold on to your boundaries and stick to them and live through them and love them and know why they're your boundaries. Because a lot of the times I find myself, when I have a boundary set, it becomes really easy for me to like waver. Well, what if I just tonight, like, what if I just did this one thing? Like, it's fine, it's one night. Why am I wavering my boundaries for someone who I do love, but why am I wavering that when I just want them to respect it? I just want them to be like, okay, that's totally fine. Maybe next time. Or 100%, I understand. I totally understand. Thank you for checking for me. That kind of a reaction versus, come on, you're lame. Come on, you're this. Come on, you're that. And putting me down for it. I think that's the hard part. And that's the reason why boundaries are so hard, is because the reactions we get from people and the ways that those people make us feel about our boundaries, such as guilty, such as frustrated, such as maybe I could waver this. It's practicing self compassion in that moment of knowing and being grateful and being content in yourself and loving yourself for the decisions that you're making for yourself, and trusting that what you're saying and what you need and what you don't need is right for you. Because a lot of the times we'll waver that for other people. And what that will do is leave a gaping hole for other people to walk all over you and to walk all over your boundaries. Know your value. Know your limits. If you don't know what your boundaries are, you need to do some self reflection. I got into a relationship and I had no idea what my boundaries were. I had no idea what I was looking for in someone. I just wanted someone to have fun with. And I think that's great. But now, as I date, I am so particular about what I'll put up with and what I won't put up with. And I know that that is one of the good things that came out of that relationship, is I grew a backbone in terms of what I allow and what I don't allow. But if you don't know where you lie and what you'll accept and what you don't accept outside of the cultural norm, right? Outside of societal's norm, what's acceptable to you, you will get caught with someone pushing boundaries that you aren't even sure you have, as you're trying to maybe even create those boundaries. And because you're creating them as someone's pushing them, it's so much easier for them to walk over them. And it happened to me way too much. It happened to me way too much. I allowed my thoughts of myself to change and my trust with myself to completely shift because I didn't have boundaries and I didn't have structure and what I was looking for in friendships and relationships. And therefore, ended up with now things that I'm healing from because I didn't know that that was important to me at the time. Don't put pressure on it, because if you don't know, you don't know. But do some self-reflection and deep diving into what you need and what you want, what you'll accept and what you won't accept. Because if you start at that starting point, at that first thing of knowing your value and knowing your limits, it's going to be so much easier to know when someone's overstepping that and pushing that. It's more beneficial for you when you know where you lie and when you know what's important to you and what's not important to you. So that's what I want to leave you with, okay? I urge you, if you are someone who is just trying to figure out your boundaries, because you just don't know. Like, you know the basics, but you don't really know. When someone asks that question of what are your boundaries, you don't know. Take some time. Take some time. Learn your worth, learn your value, and love that. Love that welcome into that new version and that stronger version of yourself. But you guys, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit different. And again, this is something that I'm working on right now. Okay? This is something that I'm like facing right now as like I am in this new chapter of my life. So I will keep y'all updated with how this goes. There probably will be another episode based off of like something within this conversation of boundaries, because I'll be learning as I go and I'm excited for you guys to learn with me. But just know that I'm so grateful that you've listened, and I'm so grateful that maybe you took something away from this. Maybe it was just something that was a great reminder, but you guys, this is so important. This is such an important topic. We've talked so much about friendships and relationships and just finding your identity, that in that identity, boundaries are so important. And a lot of times we forget even what a boundary is. We forget. We just don't really think too much about it because we know what it is, but we just don't know what it is in us. And so take that time. I urge you, take that time. But I am so grateful that you've listened. I'm so grateful that you've been a part of this episode. If you enjoyed it, you know the drill. Let me know, okay? Leave a comment, DM me, say something to me, please. I like hearing what you guys have to say, but also, yeah, don't be afraid to leave comments. On a real note, let me know how you feel, okay? Let me know how you feel. I love constructive criticism, but I also love when people relate to what I have to say, because that's why I do what I do. So, thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening. I love you so very much. Mean it, okay? Love you, love you, love you. I will talk to you so very soon. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys today, okay? Have an amazing week. I love you. See you later. Bye.